What is up, guys? It's the Sound Alchemist, and I'm joined by...
Gersh1.
Literally joined. Like, Fabius Bile came over here, and he was supposed to give us some BBLs, but instead he just joined us at the hooves.
Yeah, that's why we can't record the bottom portion of us. It's just a mess down there. Fabius Bile did all types of nastiness. My little strap behind my hat flipped open.
Oh. And that wasn't me doing it this time. Whatever that means.
That chipmunk has a shit ton of things in its mouth.
Yeah.
And this is a video... Wait, have we done that?
No. For the greater...
This is a video series where we answer the questions left by you, the viewer. If you have a question for us, just comment down below. Put question in front of your question because we get to those questions first. We try our best not to get distracted by what's in front of us, to the side of us, or behind us. But it's hard because the webway is a mysterious place. And we just love crazy things. This question comes from Erica9. How smart are Space Marines? I'm talking general intelligence. Yeah, you can fix a tank and see a sweet perimeter, but could you run a planet, invent something, or solve high-level puzzles? Yeah, so...
Yeah, definitely Space Marines are smart. But smart and IQ and like street smart and book smart, there's a lot to it. So I think the best way of comparing a Space Marine to something we as war gamers can really feel comfortable around is, if you guys have seen the show Smart Guy, that's how smart they are.
T.J. Henderson level intelligence. That's how smart a Space Marine is.
Yeah. Big brain, not smooth brain.
So take TJ's brain and then put it into, what's the giant lunk's name? The one that's not the brother's friend from that show?
Pedro Infante.
That guy. Some Ultramarine successor chapters and even the Ultramarines take on the role of planetary governor to their world.
Yeah.
That's how good they are at like navigating through the complexities of just politics, economics, and just pure battle and like building a force and all that kind of stuff.
Right, because whenever we see Space Marines, obviously we're thinking of them in battle. In the grim dark future of 40K, there's only war. So you always think about Space Marines fighting, but no, they're actually pretty smart. They can hold their own at like a spelling bee, a science fair.
Yeah, but it also depends on the gene seed and where, because like, I'm not gonna say that like Leman Russ and the Space Wolves are stupid, but they're more brutish. So instead of solving the problem by, you know, non-conventional means, what they do is they just like smash their head in front of something or like punch somebody in order to solve a problem.
Right.
And you find that in like other successor chapters, not just the ones that are designed that way. Like even the Imperial Fists. Sometimes you'll have an Imperial Fist captain in one of the stories act like, kind of like, you know, I am a Space Marine, I am a superhuman warrior, I'm just going to use my brute force to solve this problem.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you have like the Iron Hands that like build their way out of problems.
Right.
So they're smart. They're talented. Space Marines. Now, comparing that to the AdMech, I think the AdMech definitely are... Yeah, I'll say it. Definitely they're smarter. And I think it's just because a lot of them have that drive to gain knowledge. If a Space Marine had that drive, then yes, I guess you can argue that. But inherently, the AdMech, the Tech Priests, that kind of thing, they want to learn, they want to tinker, gain information. That's why they go for like relics and stuff like that, STCs. So yeah.
Even though I think I would argue that it's a little bit more of like the Space Marines have the inherited intelligence or that drive to be better in warfare, whereas the Adeptus Mechanicus, because what they're doing is they're just modifying their bodies and trying to expand that quest for knowledge, so expand their minds, they're not really ever attaining an understanding of how the toaster works. They are worshiping the toaster.
Right.
So it's a different type of intelligence, and it's an intelligence that's supposed to be more like
grounded
religion.
Grounded and religious.
Because what I was thinking is like, you know how the Catholic Church has multiple fields of study in the theology of Christianity? Christianity, at the end of the day, is just a made-up world. So it's kind of like us, actually. So like we are like the Adeptus Mechanicus. We know a lot about 40K, but that doesn't really mean anything. Like, it means something to you guys because you guys are interested, but to us, like, we're not really learning how to run an empire by learning about the High Lords of Terra. Right. It's the same thing with the Adeptus Mechanicus. They're not really learning about gravity by manipulating, like, what's a gravity type of weapon?
Grav guns?
Yeah, like a grav gun. They're kind of just praying to it and hoping that it works. So, I don't know. I think there's two different ways of looking at intelligence. Not that a space marine will be able to crack the code of, grav technology or anything like that.
Right. Kind of like us. Like, oh, we know how to use an iPhone, but do we really know how an iPhone works?
We don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the next question.
This one is by... well, I'll just bring it up real quick. So this is by UH Credhead. I think your fish sticks are similar to our fish fingers. So I think that's a UK thing, because I've never heard fish fingers be a thing.
I've heard of salad fingers.
Right.
That was a scary show back in the day, back when YouTube was young.
Oh, yes. But yeah, it's interesting how, like, different words mean different things depending on geographical features, like fish and chips, crisps, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we're all on the same page now. Thank you, UH Credhead.
Even though we don't really eat that here in the U.S., like,
right.
Fish and chips are just not common.
No. Like, whenever I go to a restaurant and they have fish and chips, I never get it.
No. And it's always like they're trying to be... It's like when an American restaurant has tacos on their menu. This is just because it's like, oh, it's popular and hipstery. The tacos are probably going to be trash.
Evilist Statue says, what happens when a space marine can't fight anymore, like so badly maimed to the point where the homie ain't shit, and also hasn't earned the honor of being interred in a dreadnought? My guess would be that they put him down like a dog? Question mark?
To harvest the gene seed, yeah. But that's very rare.
Yeah. Well, it's rare, but it happens, because if you look at the apothecary model, you see his, like, he's got a drill, he's got some, like, servo arms and stuff like that, but he's also got a piston. That piston is used to euthanize, aka off, the space marine that is too badly injured. And basically what they do is they put the piston right up to the base of the neck and euthanize him.
End his life. And I know what you're thinking. Why don't, like, the emperors or the enemies of the emperors just get that same piston and do that to the space marines? I don't know.
But I mean, he's using it on a space marine who can't basically move. It's
Yeah.
like, to get up close to a space marine, use the piston correctly and not, like, bounce off his, like, huge pauldrons or something like that. That's a feat in and of itself.
That's true. It's a feat for a Harlequin.
Yes.
A chapter that or a faction we rarely talk about.
That's true. Harlequins are pretty cool.
Yeah. Next question comes from Simon Teese. Is there any part of the Imperial Society that allows to be truly atheists, not following any belief system whatsoever? If you get high enough, like with High Lords and stuff like that, you can not believe and then just have a fake, like, persona that you do believe.
Fake it till you make it.
But honestly, no.
No, unless you're, like, some part of some world that's been shut off or cut off through, like, warp storms or something from the greater Imperium, it's possible.
Yeah.
But I mean, are you even actually part of the Imperium at that point?
Right. I like to think of it like politicians back in, like, previous generations, where it seems like every single politician would say, yeah, I believe in God. Do you, though?
Yeah, I've been recently binge watching, like, a whole bunch of, like, history YouTube channels, and as I was falling asleep last night, I heard this guy saying, like, way back in the day there was a pope that was basically getting paid off by, like, the emperor and, like, kings and stuff like that to have his power. So he was basically a figurehead, and this dude would go out and just party it out all the time, to the point where he'd be like, all right, like, he'd be playing like dice or something. He's like, all right, Zeus, I better get this 7. And everybody's like, Zeus? And he's like, oh, crap, I mean, Thor. And it's like, who do we pray to again? Who's our god? So that's crazy that the Pope didn't even know, like, what was up.
His own theology.
This next one is by Craig's Cottage. If the Primarchs had to duke it out for a night with Bridget B, who would win? Now let's assume for this question that all the Primarchs have the bits necessary and a sex drive to some degree.
That's a good question.
Yeah. We've seen them, go head to head a few times. The Lion and Lehman Russ fought for a whole day. I mean, I guess they weren't fighting to kill, but I mean, this battle could last weeks. And it's like at that point, would Bridget B just lose interest and leave? I don't know, because it's kind of fun to see like men fighting for your love and attention.
I love it all the time. I want it to happen all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I think she would probably be chained up, right? Kind of like Princess Leia. And I actually think that Lorgar would be the winner. You see that fly?
Yeah, I did. That's a Nurgle trying to creep in.
And the reason I say Lorgar would do it is because he kind of like, he'll hide in the shadows and let everybody fight and destroy each other, and then he'll just come back, or he'll come back towards go towards the one who's exhausted now, the last man standing basically, and just take him off.
And then she'll be like, oops, I'm stuck in this laundry machine.
And then the Adeptus Mechanicus would come in and get really happy because they've never seen a laundry machine.
Yeah. Not a dryer or a washer, but a laundry machine.
This question comes from Sappy Creed. If the Imperium saves Isha, will she be able to heal the Emperor or at least tell the Imperium how to save him? Maybe.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, because it has to be like a writer within GW that wants to make that a focal point, because they've tried making Eldar gods a focal point before with Yvraine.
Iniad.
And
No. Eldrad even had a big thing to do with it, but he was fighting the Death Watch and everybody just flocked to the Death Watch. Yeah. In my headcanon, what I want to actually happen is that exactly. I want the Imperium to say, hey, the last time we joined forces with the Eldar, they resurrected a Primarch. I think it's time that we kind of pay them a favor, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We'll go into the gardens of Nurgle. We'll use their psychically powerful beings and our might as Space Marines to fight our way in there, rescue their god, and in turn bring back our Emperor. Because I think it's a win-win situation for both, because they get Isha back, they get the Emperor back, they horribly hinder the strength and power of Nurgle, and it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah. GW just has to act on it.
Yeah.
Which is the challenge.
It is.
Next question comes from David Graham. Do you guys ever play older edition rules, or do you stick to the current rule set? Also, which has been your favorite edition? So we usually always stick to the most recent, unless there's a change and like the rules are still kind of weird, because like when we went from 8th to 9th, I remember we were still playing 8th edition rules for a while, like maybe a month.
That's because we couldn't get our hands on the 9th edition rule book.
Oh, is that the Indomitus stuff?
Yeah. So it's like they were out there, but it was kind of hard to find everything.
But yeah, I don't think we ever got back to play a different edition.
No. And at this point, there's like so many units that don't even have rules from prior editions that you'd want to use now.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be weird and kind of wonky. Like, let's say we went back to 5th edition and we have pie plates and templates, and then the next game we play 9th edition. It's like, well, hold on, like, how do we do this again? Or like, initiative's a thing again. Now we have to remember that. And I think it's hard enough just learning the rules for the current edition. If we go back, I think that'll just hurt us in the long run.
Yeah, you can't just create initiative numbers for the Primaris Marines out of nothing without actually having... Because I'm pretty sure GW has some type of algorithm that calculates the point value based on like the stats of the actual model. But who knows? They could just YOLO it.
What was your favorite edition?
Favorite edition was probably 5th edition, just because I was able to play the Knob Bikers with a Pain Boy on a bike, and that unit would never get destroyed.
No. The wound allocations and just healing them up and how fast they can move and how devastating in combat, that was really a strong unit, and I always feared going up against it.
Yeah.
I think my favorite edition, I want to say it's 7th, which is the edition we probably played the least. But it was fun because at that point the Tau were really good. I remember there was a game where like your orcs didn't even get to me. I just shot them before they could even charge.
Yep.
So that felt good. And now now the Tau are like the bottom of the barrel in 9th edition.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting how editions really move and shape the feel of your armies. One time you could feel like you're king of the world. The next time it's like, well, I lost, and it hasn't even been the end of turn 1.
Yeah. That is true.
Yeah.
Next question comes from Jamie Garth. What do you guys think of 3D printed minis, GW or otherwise?
It's cool. It's nice that you don't actually have to order or go. If you have the printer and the stuff, you could pull up a mini pretty quickly.
Yeah. And the quality of the actual figures is really good now.
Yeah.
GW does use 3D printed stuff and then just mass produce it, and it looks good.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, a company like that has enough to buy a printer like that, or that is as good as what it's creating.
Mm-hmm.
So who knows what we're going to be, or who knows how far 3D printing technology is going to get to.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool too, because let's say you want to print a certain head or a certain weapon, you don't have to buy a whole unit just to get that thing. You could just 3D print it.
Yep. Yeah.
This next one is by Peter Crocco. Hi, I have one question, if you have the time. Well, guess what? We do. Does orcs? Do the orcs travel through the warp? Have they shield themselves against chaos corruption in the warp? And can they construct a massive, complex spaceships based on their current technology? Thanks and great work.
So yes and yes.
Mm-hmm.
They do travel through the warp. They don't always have Geller fields. Sometimes they just go into the warp and they fight whatever comes out of the weird boy's head. That's kind of like their thing.
Mm-hmm.
They enjoy that because the journey is as good as the destination for them.
Oh, yeah.
But then also, like, you have in the story The Beast Arises, or the Beast series, you do have teleported technology that just can teleport giant rocks and stuff like that. And those orcs actually do have better control of where and when they're going to exit in a location and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, both, yes to both.
Mm-hmm.
Next question.
Oh, this one's by Tech Saga. Now, the Primaris enjoy more of the chapters. Do chapters create Space Marines or Primaris? Oh, how do the Primaris enjoy more of the chapters? I don't know what that first part is.
What is the main?
But he's asking, do chapters create Space Marines or Primaris most of the time? I still want to say the Firstborn, the true Space Marines, true whatever you want to call them, I think those are still more readily used than the Primaris. Because to become a Primaris, you either have to be created by call, which most of them are already out and about, or you have to undergo the process as a Firstborn Marine to become a Primaris. So I think eventually the Firstborn will kind of dwindle down in numbers and you'll have more Primaris. But as of right now, I think there's still tons more of the Firstborn.
Yeah, and I mean the process itself, like, so the neophyte would go through the process and then just go straight into the Primaris stuff, and then you don't have to have that gap in between becoming a Space Marine and then a Firstborn,
right?
And then going into the Primaris to the point where, like, why wouldn't you want to have Primaris? It's like having this really, really good weapon or this good weapon. You want the really, really good weapon.
Right.
Yeah. And then next question.
This one kind of ties into it, but Bunny Hap asks, at what age is a person able to become a Space Marine?
Usually the process starts, I think, at 7 years of age or 11, whenever you start hitting puberty.
Mm-hmm. Which is kind of different for people. Also, it's very different depending on what part of the system of the galaxy you're in, because warp storms could impact that. The flora and the fauna of the world that you live in also impacts that. Like if you're just drinking raw milk, that impacts that.
Yeah, from groks. Just sitting there milking groxes all day.
I call my grok.
There you go. And those were the questions for today. We'll leave you guys off with that. What do you guys call it? Apparently it's Grox. If you guys have more questions for us, please comment down below. Thank you guys so much for listening.
And as always, it's the Sound Alchemist.
Gershwan.
And we are out.
Always used to put my freedom first in any situation.